Namaste. As you watch this video, ladies and gentlemen, the government of India has already put in place 4 union ministers to go to nations as special envoys. These nations are neighboring nations surrounding Ukraine, and their job is to facilitate the evacuations of Indian nationals from Ukraine into these nations and then back to India. Compare this with an America which is telling its citizens to stay put in Ukraine or look at private options. Travel if it is safe. It's only saying stay away from the Poland borders and the Moldovan borders, go to Romania, Hungary, but you've got to look out for yourself. This is the difference between India, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and other nations. But the other question, is India right in putting India first? India so far has abstained from resolutions against Russia in the United Nations. India continues to say that both sides need to come and sit on the dialogue table, and that's happening now. But India refuses to take a position pro or anti-Russia. Why is India right in putting its interests first? India right in putting India first. Thousands of our citizens are trapped in Ukraine. Angering one side or the other could result in anger, violence against Indian citizens on ground. Already, Ukrainian security personnel have been rough with some students at the border over India's abstention and neutrality. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a NATO versus Russia issue, a spillover of the Cold War and NATO's continued eastward movement in Europe since the 90s, despite an assurance given to Russia that NATO will not expand eastward towards Russia. It's not India's direct concern. It is between these two entities. India has got no role to play because it's not in the region. Russia has, on the other hand, always had India's back through thick and thin. It has continuously used its UN veto power in India's favor. Time and again this has happened. Russia stood by India in 1971 and ensured that a combined might of America and China couldn't militarily bully India. It played a significant role in helping India free Bangladesh. Can we forget that? The West behavior so far has shown that their help is more talk than real action, similar to what happened in Afghanistan. On ground, even when NATO is just miles away from Ukraine borders, what we are seeing is reluctance, lots of lip service. Armed neighbors on India's borders. Can India simply count on the West coming to India's aid when it is in dire straits? Joe Biden has not imposed sanctions on crude oil because it will hurt America's interests. Cancelling football matches and Putin's honorary presidentship of Judo Federation is going to have no real impact on ground. Russia has some leverage over China. In fact, it even helped mediate and de-escalate tensions at the border, especially after Gunwan. India can ill afford more proximity between Russia and China given China's expansionist intent onto Indian territory. India needs Russia on its side. Bulk of India's defense supplies from Russia. We can't risk that and spares, etc., just for some statements and tweets of support. Russia has always been an able provider of defense equipment and technology, usually one of the lowest bidders when India is out shopping. They have also helped build our nuclear subs, the BrahMos missiles, S-400 missile defense systems, and of course the various aircraft including the Sukhoi in our Air Force. Underlying reasons for war are a lot more complicated than what is sought to be projected by the West. The West, in fact, has a lot to blame for what has transpired. The narrative, the media narrative and the info war is controlled by the West and they are winning it. On ground, the situation is otherwise. Had NATO not expanded eastward, had the West not used asymmetric warfare, its soft power to further wean away erstwhile Soviet Union nations and nations in Eastern Europe who were part of the Warsaw Pact into NATO itself and slowly got right up to the Russian borders, we wouldn't have seen this situation. And despite knowing fully well that Ukraine is sandwiched between these two forces, for Ukraine also to become an instrument in the Western plot to try and expand and get right up to Russia's doorstep, this current situation has arisen. Let these forces sort it out between themselves. We will work with those who will help further our interests. In these matters, it's not morality and emotional chords, it's rationality, pragmatism, and what really matters for us as a nation, as India. So India is right in putting India first.